for coming to San Diego and helping us out. That's great, right? They're witnessing, doing more than we could do as, shall we say it, elderly couples. Grown-ups, yeah, that's right. So Sunday 31st, 2025, sermon title is How God Expresses Power Through Humanity. Everybody complains. Where's God? Not everybody. You as Christians, we understand God, but many atheists complain, why doesn't God just save everybody? If God is good and God is all powerful, why doesn't he just save everybody? Because it's simply not the way God works. God has a way to work, and if you understand the way to work, then it works, right? Like if you understand engineering, you can make a beautiful house that doesn't fall down. But if you don't understand the laws of engineering, you'll make a house and it crashes down and hurts people. So I always show these pictures. This is my introduction because this is God's salvation to my family. All these babies, all these kids, all these children comes directly from the blessing of true parents, right? Comes directly from true parents' blessing. And Jesus commands in Mark 10:6 that you should become one flesh, the two shall stay together, and that children should be the whole goal of your marriage. And that's why you stay together, for the sake of your children. So we have many beautiful couples here in San Diego. Look at this. That's Madeline. And I thought you'd appreciate just seeing pictures of cute babies. This is like a lowland gorilla holding a beautiful little girl. I always thought that's a great contrast, isn't it? And that's Luna. And this is our original blessing, what we look like when we were blessed. Young, good looking. Anyhow, so providence, restoration, Abraham's family. This is about the formula of how God works. It's a formula. In the introduction to the divine principle, as man is destined to recommit sin and destined to misery and unhappiness because they don't know how God works. And because they don't know, then they recommit crimes and sins and then live in misery all their lives. Isn't that so? So we thought this is something important. This is the pictures of clouds on my way to visit my son Israel. So I love the beauty of nature. I have hundreds of photographs of clouds, trees, mountains, and water. I take pictures of clouds all the time because you only get clouds once. You can see a beautiful meadow many times, but you only get beautiful clouds one time and then they change. Trees, meadows, water, but I love my children, grandchildren, spiritual children, friends, especially in our congregation. Love is more important than just clouds and things like that. They're nice, but still, this is our baby Cora, and for those of you who are praying for her, she's back home now. Did I say Cora? I meant Luna. It's baby Luna and her gorilla grandfather. So there's a lot of love in the world, and if you think about it, most parents, most grandparents love their children, right? It's like when we love each other. We all have friendship with people. We love them. We want to love them. We want them to be happy. We want them to be better. But on the other hand, there's a lot of non-love in this world. There's a lot of people. There's Ukraine at war with Russia, and they're doing unbelievably horrible things. It's unbelievably horrible. Well, you might see a picture of a burned out building, but you don't see the building blowing up and people being torn to pieces. Atheists say this is the non-love is a fact of nature, that it's just natural that human beings are vicious, cruel, worse than animals. That's what they say. But for example, they say it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, right? Haven't you heard that? Dog-eat-dog world out there. But you know what? Dogs don't really eat dogs. In fact, dogs take good care of each other. If you're in a wolf pack, you're protected by the alpha male and the alpha female. Because you're the little puppy and the alpha male's there and a bear comes, alpha male, wolf daddy, and wolf mommy are going to bite the heck out of that bear and protect you at the cost of their lives. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Animals love each other. If you're a baby lion and your daddy lion and mommy lion's there and hyenas come to get you, what's going to happen to them? Lions are going to kill the snot out of them, right? Because there is a thing called loving protection in our world that, in fact, is ubiquitous. Not only do human parents love their children, animal parents love their children, all kinds of animals love their children, except snakes. If that is the case, how do we explain sacrificial love of another? If there's sacrificial animals willing to fight for the sake of their children, where does that come from? If there's only viciousness and there's only a dog eat dog, then where does all the love and protection and self-sacrifice others? Where does patriotism come? Men willing to go fight for their country and risk their lives to save their countrymen. Parental sacrifice for children and grandchildren, and even sacrificial love for even strangers. Firemen run into a burning building to save a total stranger. It's not, you can make sense. Evolution, as your kid, you want your genetics to pass on for whatever reason. But nevertheless, firemen, policemen, soldiers, they run into burning buildings to save absolute strangers. Isn't that amazing? That's the truth of our universe. And that's really how God works, is through the love and responsibility of human beings. So, let's continue. We believe that hatred, jealousy are natural things. It's natural. If you have a firstborn and a secondborn comes, the firstborn is jealous of the secondborn, right? It's natural, but it's not evil. In fact, it was supposed to be, if these feelings are supposed to be a minor and used for good. For example, ambition is good if you are trying to be the first to create a new vaccine or more food for others or even the best new car or the best telephone that serves your neighbor. Then it's good to be ambitious. If you're the second child and you're jealous of the first child, but you have the ambition to be loved by your parents, and so you love the first child and you love your little sister and you love your mom and dad, then that's good. That's what jealousy is supposed to make you do. That's what you're supposed to do with jealousy. You're not supposed to hate your neighbor. You're not supposed to try and kill your neighbor because you're jealous because he's better looking. We say there's one morality, and that one morality dictates that we love each other. That's the most important morality. That is, we do unto others as we would have them do unto us, and that we live for the sake of others. If you do that, divine principle promises that you'll be blessed. If not in this life, at least in the afterlife. In fact, this is the real meaning of the Hebrew Sabbath, that is thanking God for the creation of our universe. Jewish people, Hebrew people, thank God on Saturday, right? The last day of the week. You know why? Because they're thanking God for all the creation of the first 6 days of creation. And all the plants and trees, water, our bodies, our health, all these things. That's great. Why do Christians give thanks on the first day of the week? You know why? Because Jesus resurrected, and because Jesus is making all things new. We're praying for the next 2,000 years to be better than the last 2,000 years. We greet Jesus, God, on the first day of the week because Jesus is making a new world to us, and we're hoping for a new world. In fact, that's what this sermon is about. So let's see. We do believe that our human race began in immaturity, and that God, Creator, true parent, has been trying to raise us up to become mature, true sons and daughters, true parents ourselves, true brothers and sisters to all human and to all animals. We're supposed to love animals, be nice to them. God is one. So there's one Big Bang. There's only one Big Bang, right? There's only one origin of the universe. There's only one universe and one set of laws for the entire universe. Gravity works the same all over the earth, right? On the moon, the gravity is the same, and Jupiter, other planets. It's all the same law. One set of laws for the whole universe. Because there's one God. Because there's only one God and one mind, right? Creator, one mind, one heart. Therefore, God begins the restoration of true human nature through a central pillar of human history. So we say there's a central line of growth of human beings in human history. Why? Because God always begins with one. Every person in here began with how many cells? One cell. Isn't that odd? All animals begin with one cell. All creatures begin with one. Why is that? Because God is one. And that shows you the image of God if you study creation. So we believe that Judeo-Christian history is a central history of God's course of restoration. The central history. There's other histories. History of China is great. History of Mexico is great. Those are all great histories. But we believe that Judeo-Christian history is a central history of God's course of restoration of all human beings. That is, nations rise and nations fall, yet the Torah remains forever. Torah is still here, right? The central pillar of the Torah, of course, is who? Abraham and his family. That's the central first, like the first cell of the body of Judeo-Christianity, the first cell is Abraham and Sarah, right? 23 chromosomes from one, 23 chromosomes from the other make this first single zygote cell. So it's two. Okay, so this is from our divine principle on how God raises up humanity. How do we do it? So we'll know how to live our lives. God calls Abraham. Abraham had to restore the position of Noah, the second human ancestor. He had to stand in the position of Adam, too. Therefore, he had first to set up the symbolic condition of indemnity for the restoration of the position of Adam's family before he offered the symbolic sacrifice. And here's how it goes. You've heard this story. I've told this story before. You've heard it in Divine Principle. Genesis 12:10. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. That's nice, right? Someone recognizes her. Probably she said, right, you finally figured that out? Anyhow, so when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but let you live. Say to them that you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. Isn't that interesting? So people think, oh, what a loser Abraham is. What's wrong with him? A lot of people think that, and maybe he was. I can't say for sure. So what happened is, what's the result? When Abraham came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that Sarai was very beautiful. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace, and he treated Abram well for her sake. And Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. So Pharaoh sees Sarah is really beautiful and wants to make friends with her. So he says, you know what? I'll make your brother rich. I'll make him really rich, and then you'll like me, right? See how it works? Let's see. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abraham's wife Sarai. See, this is Alphonse Mucha, by the way. So Pharaoh summoned Abram, what have you done to me? He said, why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. So you've heard this story before in Divine Principle. It says what it is. It says, but we say Sarah is responsible for saving the life of Abraham. What if she didn't save Abraham's life? Would there be a Hebrew people? Would there be a Jesus Christ? Would there be a King David? No. Sarah is responsible for saving Judeo-Christian history. This is what Mother's trying to tell us, that the divine principle we used to teach was just man-centered. It's just Abraham. It's just Abraham. Mother says, no. Sarah is the mother of all Hebrew people. Sarah is the beginning of Jesus Christ, right? And all the Hebrew people, including Jesus Christ. That's what Mother's trying to educate us. So we see things from a female mother side of God, not just a masculine side of God. Does that make sense? So we always understood this is our original thing. Adam and Eve. Eve betrays Adam with the archangel, makes him spiritually dead, herself spiritually dead, and the archangel spiritually dead. But when Abraham and Sarah meet the Pharaoh, Abraham gets wife, lot, and wealth and servants, and the whole world. So because Sarah is faithful to Abraham, not like Eve, at the risk of her life, the opposite of Eve, Pharaoh shows fear of God and returns Sarah to Abraham as the archangel should have done to begin with. And this is the beginning of the central pillar of human restoration. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. So here's the point. Who is the hero of the story? Obviously, Sarah is the hero. What a beautiful, she's good looking. She has behind every great man is a great woman. So she makes Abraham into the man he is, right? So Sarah's the hero of the story. Abraham's life is spared because of Sarah's absolute loyalty to God and Abraham. Isn't that amazing? She was willing to risk her life and virtue for the sake of her husband. This is mature. So she's a mature woman. Eve is immature. Sarah is mature, right? Eve is immature, centered on herself. Sarah is mature, centered on God's will, the life of her husband, and the life of her children. Does that make sense? That's why we say it's restoration history through maturity. So this is mature, sacrificial love, the image of God-like love. John 15:13, greater love has no one than this, that they lay down one's life for his friends. Sarah is willing to lay down her life for her husband. Isn't that amazing? And that becomes the rock of Christianity. The opposite of Eve, who betrayed God and her husband, Adam seducing Adam and bringing him to hell with her. This is the foundation stone for the coming of the Israelites, or the descendants of Judah, called Jews. Right? Where did the Jews come from? Judah. So I'm going to tell a couple of these stories because I want you to really understand how important these people are to the story. In fact, the providence of restoration cannot move forward without Sarah, not just Abraham, right? Because Sarah restores the position of wife and daughter of God in the formation stage through loyalty to God and her husband. The foundation for the coming Christ is set because of Sarah's courage. God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but God is also the God of Sarah, Rebekah, and Leah. Right? They always say Abraham and Isaac, and they never say Sarah, Rebekah, and Leah. But Leah is the mother of Judah. That's why it's Leah. Right? So you might ask this question, right? What's the story got to do with me? Well, what has that got to do with you? That's Columbo. He always is going like that. Well, anyhow, I like Columbo. Here's why it has something to do with us. It's called familyism. Familyism is a pattern of all creation. God made the effort of sacrificial love creating our universe. For families to exist, we must learn to offer sacrificial love for one another. What did Sarah do? Did she wrestle any angels like Jacob? Did she conquer any cities like King David? Did she do any of those things? Well, she was simply absolutely loyal to her husband, even at the cost of her life. Even in danger, she was loyal to her husband, and that's what changes the world. Because after her loyalty, what happens? All the Israelites come. Jesus comes. King David comes. The Jews come. The cure for tuberculosis comes. Everything comes because Sarah fulfilled the position of a good wife. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing, ladies? Yes. I thought you'd like that. I thought you'd like that. Because God is love, God's providence moves forward on the basis of the foundation of love. God doesn't just wave a magic wand and make things happen or change it. It has to be based on a foundation of love. Right? Abraham and Sarah are the rock, the foundation for the coming Christ, and is the central pillar of human history. We could say sacrificial love is a sacred pillar of human history and the secret to restoration. Nations rise, nations fall, but the Torah remains. Jews are called Jews because they descend from the tribe of Judah. Right? They're not called Jakes because they come from Jacob's family. They're not called Abes because they come from Abraham's family. They're called Jews because they come from Judah's family. So here's the question. Why Judah? He had 11 brothers and some sisters. Why Judah? Why Judah? Of all people, do the Jews come from Judah? In fact, they're called Jews. Now, okay, I'm going to answer the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, here it looks like this. Judah intercedes for Benjamin. Self-sacrificial love is a cornerstone of God's power on earth. And when people express a willingness to sacrifice themselves for the sake of others, especially God's people, that's when God can work miracles and do powerful things. Right? For example, okay, now I'm not going to tell you, this is a long story. I invite you to read the story of Jacob and Joseph and his brothers, Genesis 30. But I'm just going to, so what happens is, Joseph is in Egypt. He's the prime minister of Egypt. He's the boss. But his father Abraham thinks he's dead. Benjamin is Joseph's little brother by Rachel. So Abraham really loves, he's the youngest child. Abraham really loves him. But Benjamin.
No, Jacob's the dad.
Jacob really loves Benjamin. Okay? So Joseph asks Judah, the elder brother, please bring me Benjamin. I need to see him. because he's his little brother. He loves him, and he says, please bring me Benjamin. Oh, no, he tells him, go back and bring your father and leave Benjamin here for me. He's going to tell him who he is, right? But then Judah says this. Now, this is Judah. Judah replying to Joseph, I don't want to leave Benjamin here. If I'll leave Benjamin with you and I go home to my father Abraham, my father Jacob, Israel, will think he's dead and he'll die of sadness. So here's the story. Now, therefore, when I come to your servant, my father, Israel, Jacob, and the lad is not with us, since his life is bound up in the lad's life, it will happen when he sees that the lad is not with us, that he will die. So your servants will bring down the gray hair of your servant, our father, with sorrow to the grave if I leave Benjamin with you. For your servant became surety for the lad to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, that I should bear the blame before my father forever. And Judah says this. Judah offers himself as a slave to Pharaoh to save his little brother and his father Jacob Israel. That's why Judah is the root to Jesus Christ. That's why, because he makes a sacrifice. Okay, take me, kill me, take me, make me a slave, but let my little brother Benjamin go home to his father. Isn't that amazing? So this is how God works. Now, therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the lad as a slave to my Lord, and let the lad go out with his brothers. For how shall I go out to my father if the lad is not with me, lest perhaps I see evil that would come upon my father? God always works through sacrificial, self-sacrificial love. And when Judah does this, Judah becomes the root of Jesus Christ. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Again, he doesn't kill anybody, doesn't attack any cities, doesn't win anybody, doesn't win a contest. I invite you to read the whole story. What we learn is that Judah, son of Jacob, Israel, becomes a central ancestor, King David, and Jesus Christ. Isn't that amazing? I believe in his willingness to sacrifice himself for the sake of his little brother Benjamin and his father Jacob Israel. John 15:13, again, greater love has no one than this, to lay down his life for his friends. And that's what Judah did. He's willing to lay down his life. And then, but you can read the whole story, but then Joseph cries, I'm sorry. It's too much for me. I'm really your brother Joseph. Just bring everybody home and I'll take care of them, right? So that's what happens. You can read the whole story. So we say, and this is the foundation for the coming of the Messiah, this love relationship between Judah, his father, and Benjamin. Again, Benjamin's his stepbrother. It's not even his whole brother, but he's willing to lay himself down for that. Did I say stepbrother? I meant half-brother. Thank you for correcting me. So Jesus is presented as a descendant of the tribe of Judah in the Bible, both through his mother Mary and his foster father Joseph, fulfilling prophecies of the Messiah. The genealogies in the New Testament, Matthew 1, you can read those, traces the lineage to David and then to Judah, the fourth son of Jacob and son of Leah. The book of Revelation also identifies Jesus as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, confirming this heritage. Isn't that amazing? How did Judah do it? Because he didn't win the contest, he didn't conquer any cities, didn't kill anybody. He was willing to trade his life for his father and his little brother. That's what we learn. That's the secret. That's the secret, by the way, of our true parents. That's the secret of all the saints. That's the secret. So I'll tell one more story. I thought I'd tell one more story of the development and restoration history of true love. God's foundation and development of humanity is based upon true love. The story of Ruth, grandmother of David and great-great-great-grandmother of Jesus, is just one such story. It's just an absolutely beautiful story. So let's listen to this. So Naomi is Ruth's mother-in-law, and her husband dies. And then Ruth is married to a Moabite man, and she has a sister-in-law, and their husbands die. So now they're just three widows. And so Naomi says, then Naomi returns with Ruth to Israel. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab. For she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had visited his people by giving them bread. So Israel has food. There's a famine in Moab, wherever she is, but there's food there. Therefore she went out from the place where she was and her two daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah again. And Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead. and with me. So she kissed them. She kissed her daughters-in-law, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And they said to her, surely we will return with you to your people. We want to stay with you. But Naomi said, no, turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there still sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, if I should have a husband tonight and should also bear sons, would you wait for them till they are grown? Will you restrain yourselves from having husbands? No, my daughters, for it grieves me very much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. This is Ruth's answer. Then they lifted up their voices and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. And Ruth said, look, your sister, or Naomi says, look, your sister-in-law has gone back to the people and her gods. Return to your sister-in-law. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you or turn back from following after you. Wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death ever parts me from you. Isn't that true love? When you say that's absolute true love? Her mother's a widow, has no way to help her. Ruth is going to go to help her mother-in-law, not help herself. Right? She's going to care for her mother-in-law in old age because her love for her is so great. And then what happens? God's foundation and development of humanity is based upon true love. The story of Ruth, grandmother of David and ancestor of Jesus. King David was a descendant of the tribe of Judah. He was born in Bethlehem. And by the way, that is why Jesus was also born in the city of Bethlehem, because he's a son of Judah. People didn't recognize it. And Joseph is a son of Judah. But he didn't defend Jesus at the time in Bethlehem. Anyway, that's a whole other story. A city located within the territory of the tribe of Judah, and his family were members of the Israelite tribe. So everybody in Bethlehem's Judean, is a Jew, right? And Jesus is a Jew, son of Judah, descended from the line of Judah. But the whole story of Jesus' birth is messed up, and that's why he should have been made the Lion of the tribe of Judah by the Judean people. And then he would have changed the world. Then he would have overturned the world. Can you imagine Jesus and a million Judeans coming to Rome? So we say sacrificial love is the foundation of God's power on earth. Unfortunately for Jesus and us, the phrase, he came to his own and his own received him not, is from the Gospel of John in the Bible, John 1:11, and refers to the Jewish people rejecting Jesus Christ coming as a promised Messiah. Despite their spiritual and cultural heritage connected to him, this rejection highlighted humanity's spiritual blindness and failure of the world to recognize its creator. However, the passage continues stating that to those who did receive him and believe in his name, Jesus gave the right to become the children of God. And the children of God have been changing the world since the moment of Jesus' resurrection. Isn't that true? So let's see what's next. God is good. Based upon the foundation of substantial love between Jesus and his apostles, God is sending people, Christians, with sacrificial love to save humanity. For example, to produce enough food for people to eat is a restoration of the external world, isn't it? And expression of God's saving power for God's children on earth. Jesus taught us to pray every day. Do you guys pray the Our Father every day? I pray the Our Father every morning. It's the beginning of my prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, which is our first pledge that we're going to build the kingdom of heaven, right? And then next, give us this day our daily bread. Christians have been praying to God to give us our daily bread for 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Question is, has God answered our prayers? And the answer is yes. In the late 1960s, most experts said that the global famines in which billions would die would soon occur. 60s, right? The scientists, social scientists, we're all going to die of starvation. There are too many people and not enough food and whatever. Biologist Paul R. Ehrlich wrote in his 1968 bestseller, The Population Bomb, right? The battle to feed all humanity is over, he said. In the 1970s and 80s, hundreds of millions of people will starve to death in spite of any crash programs embarked upon now. This is a typical atheist, by the way. Ehrlich also said, I have yet to meet anyone familiar with the situation who thinks India will be self-sufficient in food by 1971. And India couldn't possibly feed 200 million more people by 1980. Now there's 1 billion Indians, and they're all eating, right? And he who was seated on this, Revelations, and he was seated on the throne said, behold, I, Jesus Christ, am making all things new. You know what's new? You want to know what's new? Listen to this. These are famines in human history. These are famines in human history. This is the famines in the 20th century. There's no more famines. Did you know that? The only famines are caused by socialists, communists, and Marxists. That's the only famines. All the rest of the world, civil wars. All the rest of the world, there's no more famines. Do you know why? Christian scientists changed the world. This is one of my favorite topics. So listen to this. Based on the foundation of Christianity on earth, the whole world is blessed through Judeo-Christianity. Based on who? Sarah, Abraham, Judah, David, Jesus. Nobel Prize winner Fritz Haber. How many people has Fritz Haber saved? This is from the Wikipedia, by the way. Fritz Haber, Jewish convert to Christianity, who developed the synthetic fertilizers that saved some 2.7 billion people in his time, right? Just in his time. But now they think by helping the world grow nutritious food. Without his discovery, the expansion of the world's population from 1.6 billion in 1900 to over 7 billion today would not have been possible. It is estimated that 1/3 of annual global food production uses ammonia from the Haber-Bosch process, and that this supports nearly half the world's population. This single Jewish Christian scientist, he converted to Christianity, and escaping from Nazi Germany, he died of a heart attack, by the way. I think it was 1939, something like that. 1941, whatever. Anyway, he died on his way to Israel. But you are alive today because of him. You're eating. You're fat, overweight. I didn't mean overweight. I meant you're healthy and sleek and strong. And you have food for your children. Why? Because of Fritz Haber, a German scientist, a Christian. He was a Christian. Isn't that amazing? And listen to this. It gets better. Based on the foundation of Christianity on earth, the whole world was blessed through Judeo-Christianity. Of all the inventions during the first half of the 19th century, which revolutionized agriculture, the reaper was probably the most important of all the inventions in providing enough food for billions of human beings to eat. Cyrus McCormick's reaper was probably the most important, wrote University of Chicago historian William Hutchinson on his 2-volume biography of McCormick back in the 1930s. The reaper broke the harvest labor bottleneck by allowing the farmer to reap as much as he could sow. Right? In the old days, I'll show you in a picture in a minute. So the big step toward automation allowed farms to become larger and more productive. In turn, the mechanization of agriculture accelerated industrialization and urbanization as it displaced workers migrated more rapidly from farms to factories, right? The Industrial Revolution is based on Cyrus McCormick, if you ask me. So in 1831, Cyrus demonstrated his reaper. It was noisy and awkward. It rattled and frightened the horses, still it cut the grain. It was revolutionary, for in a few hours, the reaper harvested as much grain as 2 or 3 men could cut in a whole day. And that was just the first one, right? McCormick, but this is the most important part. McCormick saw his work as a holy calling. He didn't think, I'm just an inventor and I want to make $1 billion. He didn't think that. Inseparable from his walk with God, Cyrus's spiritual life changed when he was 25. He attended a series of church services, 1 week with his parents and siblings. The following Sunday, Cyrus made a public confession of faith, became a Christian, and decided he's going to be the one to feed all mankind. I'll make it possible for people to not starve. This, in McCormick's time, this is how people collected food. You had this scythe and this woman, that's it. You had to have a bunch of guys was cutting wheat and thrashing it, and it was impossible for farmers to make enough food to feed cities. So, but then, this is what we do now. Look, now thousands of pounds and tons of food because of Cyrus McCormick. And by the way, Fritz Haber. Without Fritz Haber, you couldn't grow all this food. Without Cyrus McCormick, you could grow it, but you couldn't harvest it. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Again, absolute Christian. McCormick said, I'm an absolute Christian. Oh, we did this one already, Fritz Haber. Without his discovery, the expansion of the world's population from 1.6 billion, we read that. Okay. Atheists always ask, why doesn't God save anyone? Well, the Green Revolution usually refers to the transformation of agriculture that began in 1945. One significant factor in this revolution was the Mexican government's request to America. Mexico was on the verge of starvation. They said, America, you have cornfields, wheat fields. Can you send your experts in agriculture to us to teach us how to grow like you guys do? To establish an agricultural research station to develop more varieties of wheat that could be used to feed the rapidly growing population of the country. And that's exactly what happened. This is Nobel Prize-winning scientist Norman Borlaug, a Christian and son of Christian missionaries, Lutheran missionaries, right? So Norman Borlaug on the end of famine in the 20th century. With the experience of agricultural development began in Mexico by Norman Borlaug in 1943, judged as a success, the Rockefeller Foundation sought to spread the Green Revolution to other nations. By the way, Rockefeller became the richest man in the world and used his money for charity. He was a huge, same with Carnegie. He made the Carnegie Fund to fund charities all over the world. So we have to thank them too. And to spread the Green Revolution to other nations. The way of our Christian cultural sphere is sharing and cooperating to lift people out of poverty. By the way, Jesus made it very clear. He said, I love you Christians, but you know what? I have sheep in other pens too. Remember that? In 1961, India was on the brink of mass famine. Borlaug was invited to India by the advisor to the Indian Minister of Agriculture, M.S. Swaminathan. India began its own Green Revolution program of plant breeding, irrigation development, and financing of fertilizers. See, this is Fitzhaber. Due to Norman Borlaug's science in 1968, Indian agronomist S.K. Datta published his findings that IR8 rice yielded about 5 tons per hectare with no fertilizer and almost 10 tons per hectare under optimal conditions. This was 10 times the yield of traditional rice. So with McCormick, Fitzhaber, and Norman Borlaug, they're getting 10 times the food per acre as they used to. Isn't that amazing? That's why there's no famine in the world. That's why there's no more famine in India. When I was a kid, we'd read about famines in India, Biafra, we'd read about all those kinds of things, right? Ehrlich's predictions failed to materialize when India became self-sustaining in cereal production in 1974. As a result of the introduction of Norman Borlaug's dwarf wheat varieties, what America through Dr. Borlaug did was to create wheat, what has been labeled the Green Revolution. Famine in India, once accepted as inevitable, has not returned since the introduction of American-led Green Revolution agriculture. This is the unity, what Father always said, this is the unity of Christianity and science, right? Borlaug didn't have to save the Indian people. The United States didn't have to save the Indian people, but they saved the Indian people, didn't they? That's why we thank God in Christianity. Between 1965 and 1970, wheat yields nearly doubled in Pakistan and India, greatly improving the food security of those nations. These collective increases in yield have been labeled the Green Revolution, and Borlaug is often credited with saving billions of people from starvation. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that what Jesus did? It said whenever Jesus went somewhere, he felt compassion on the people and decided to feed the 5,000 or feed these people or give food to those people over there. That's Jesus. Borlaug is like a manifestation of Jesus in the 20th century with a degree in agriculture, right? And what's he using his degree to save billions of, that's why there's no famine in Japan or Philippines or India or Pakistan or China or any of the other countries. The only famine we received was Mao's socialist starvation. So Borlaug was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970 in recognition of his contributions to world peace through increasing food supply. Isn't that amazing? So again, famine deaths, 1860 to 2017, now no more. Didn't Jesus say, I'm making all things new? Aren't all things new? This is a new thing, no famine. Right? If you read the Bible, there's always famines everywhere. Here's a new thing, no famines anymore. You can go to the grocery store and buy anything you want, right? You can eat shrimp, you can buy mackerel, you can get salmon fish, you can get anything. Okay, Borlaug was one of the early trustees of Bread for the World, serving from 1975 through 1980. Bread for the World is a Christian organization dedicated to feeding the hungry. In the article about his funeral, he was described as a devout Lutheran. His parents were Lutheran missionaries, whose faith was a motivation for his mission to use science to feed people. Isn't that amazing? This, according to his daughter, who is quoted in the article, it also explains that he regularly attended church when not working in his mission field. What a man, right? What a man after God's own heart. This is what he said when he received his Nobel Prize. Food is the moral right of all who are born into this world. Almost certainly, however, the first essential component of social justice is adequate food for all mankind. Then, by developing and applying the scientific and technological skills of the 20th century for the well-being of mankind throughout the world, we may still say Isaiah's prophecies come true. And the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose, and the parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water. And may these words come true, by Norman Borlaug, which he actually accomplished. And we're doing more of, by the way. My belief is this. True parents made Foundation Day. They weren't killed. And they made, like we were celebrating today, what? The 30,000 couple blessing, 360,000 couple blessing. Mother established Foundation Day, and she established the Chunwon Gun. So I think this won't stop. God's will not. There's certainly smaller enemies now than there used to be. It used to be all Rome was against Christianity. Now we do have enemies, and we shouldn't think we don't. But they don't have the power that they used to have. And because mother and father accomplished all the things they did accomplish, then God's will continue on this earth. But what is it based on? Sacrificial love. I believe it's based on you, true families, loving each other, you wives loving your husbands loving your wives, your parents loving your children, and your grandparents loving your grandchildren. That, you don't have to battle a city, you don't have to wrestle the devil down on the ground, you don't have to do those things. But you do have to maintain sacrificial love for your spouse. Isn't that amazing? And your children and your children's children, and for our society, which is what we're doing. Let's see. People atheists always ask, why doesn't God just save everybody? Well, God is saving everyone through his loyal disciples of Christ. Between 1950 and 1984, as the Green Revolution transformed agriculture on the globe, world grain production increased by 250%. The production increase fostered by the Green Revolution are widely credited with having helped to avoid widespread famine and feeding billions upon billions of people. And what's the result? This is even more important. This is the child mortality graph of the United Nations. Back in 1751, child mortality was up to 50%. If you had 6 kids, 3 of them would be dead before they're 5 years old. Now look, Jesus is making all things new, isn't he? He's making all things new, and look, this is it now. And if you look at the actual numbers, even in India, now it's 2.8%, not 30% anymore, 2.8%. Ghana, 3.7%. United States, 0.65%, not even 1%. France, 0.43%. Sweden, 0.25%. Doesn't Jesus love children more than he loves everybody? More than he loves scribes or Pharisees or whatever? This is because this is Jesus' physical love on earth manifesting itself in the salvation of living children. They're not dying by the 30s or 40s or 50% anymore. Only tiny amounts we can't save them. But then, it's not like our little girl, Luna, went to the hospital. There was thousands and thousands of dollars, doctors, scientists working to save her little life, and they did save her little life. Isn't that amazing? So let's praise God and understand that science comes from God. That's what we're grateful for on the Sabbath. These are just a few stories. I could tell you hundreds of stories more, a few stories on how God works, but I believe they're significant. There are thousands and thousands more stories to tell. Our goal is to teach people about the value of sacrificial love in families, communities, science, societies, in the world. Amen? Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. We finished 3 minutes early, but I guess we'll just have to suffer through that.
Sure. Can we give another hand to Pastor Frank for the sermon? Wonderful.